Well, more than 20 years ago, South by Southwest was launched as a music festival in Austin, Texas. Well, today it's morphed into much more, including one of the biggest gatherings of tech startups and venture capitalists in the country. Tech reporter Cris Valerio standing by now, live in Austin with Mint.com founder Aaron Patzer. Cris.
Hey, Lori, that's right. We've been talking to a bunch of them this morning, and right now we have Aaron Patzer from Mint.com. Now, Aaron, you're here, you're giving a talk, and you're talking specifically about how geeks are changing finance. So the first question is, are you a geek?
Oh, I'm absolutely.
Just kidding. No, but talk to us a little bit about this dynamic between the financial services industry and the technology companies, which we're seeing a ton of right now in Silicon Valley.
You're starting to see a resurgence. I think it's been an area where there hasn't been necessarily a lot of innovation in the past 20 years. You know, you've had PayPal and you've had the rise of online banking, you've had LendingTree, but you haven't had a fundamental change in like payments. We still use the automated clearinghouse system, which is 30 years old, which is why it takes you 3 days to move money between bank accounts, or why they have to put 2 little trial deposits in order to verify that you own an account. It's a pretty antiquated system. There's a lot of room for more efficiency.
How important is mobile going to be in this space going forward, and how rapidly do you think that it will start to actually play into the mainstream financial? You know, our viewers are mainstream financial viewers to a large extent. How long do you think before we see that intersection between the mobile and mainstream?
I think it's huge. Right now, Mint has one of the most popular iPhone applications. It's been downloaded 500,000 times, and we noticed that our users use it multiple times a day to check their balances, check their budgets, and you spend on the go. You make your financial decisions on the go, so it's got to be mobile. We're working on an Android application, and we'll cover all platforms eventually.
Do you think that the iPad in any way is going to play into a changing, for instance, let me tell you, I was speaking to the guy that runs the ventures growth part of Citigroup, and he thinks that the iPad, given a bigger screen, that it could change the way people do their type of bankings, or, I mean, I don't know. Do you see that that's going to be any kind of impact at all?
I think it'll be less impact on than the smartphone. But I would love to do an iPad application where you could take your Mint finances and a big pie chart of your spending and tweak it open and dive into and see all the transactions underneath it and do all the visuals that you can do with a touch screen on. Eventually we will.
Eventually we will. So you do plan on developing on the iPad?
It's not been announced, but eventually, of course, we'll.
One of the things that you guys recently, obviously you were acquired by Intuit.
Yes.
$170 million. In 3 years, you went from nothing to being acquired at $170 million. Is that the only way out for developers, especially specifically in the finance area? Is that really the only way out, through the acquisitions, through companies like that, do you think?
It's not. I suppose you could go the public market, but that's tough. So an acquisition or just continuing as a very profitable company would be my suggestion.
So in other words, I guess what I'm saying is you don't think that the IPO market for this type, for developers, do you think that will ever exist?
For, you mean like engineers, developers of financial applications? I think you're best to sell into a big company.
One thing that you mentioned that we were talking about, you guys have patents pending, correct?
Yeah, we have 5 of them. 5
patents pending. So one thing we've seen this year in Silicon Valley is a lot of the patents falling off. So is that a broader implication on the talent that's coming out of Silicon Valley, or the venture capital that's not backing a bunch of, you think, these new ideas?
I think the biggest issue is probably the economy. It costs $20,000 or more to file a patent and get all the legal work drawn up. And I just think people haven't been able to afford it. There's also been quite a big change in patent law around method patents, which would be, well, Amazon's one-click just got held up, but business methods as opposed to algorithms, as opposed to actual devices, have not stood up well in the courts.
Aaron Patzer, the CEO of Mint.com, thank you so much for joining us.